"If I get out of here, you'll need more gods to pray for your life." Those were a couple of words Viejo Lin said to Bukele after being taken behind bars. But how did he manage to communicate with Bukele? Stay until the end of the video and find out. Before we start, make sure to register with the like button and subscribe. Our stories will surely captivate you. Now, turn on the notification bell so we can begin. Bukele's government had implemented a series of drastic measures to dismantle the power of the gangs. Raids and arrests became the norm, and prisons were overcrowded with gang members. Bukele had publicly declared that he would not rest until El Salvador was free from the influence of the Maras and other criminal organizations. However, Viejo Lin was not someone who could be easily intimidated. From his cell in a maximum security prison, he continued to lead his gang's operations with an iron fist. The government's attempts to dismantle his organization had only made Lin more cautious and strategic. One night, while the city slept, a secret meeting took place in a safe house in the slums of San Salvador. The Mara leaders had gathered to discuss their next move. Viejo Lin, with his imposing presence and penetrating gaze, led the meeting. "President Bukele thinks he can destroy us with his raids and arrests," Lin said, his voice echoing in the small room. "But he doesn't understand that we are more than just a gang." The leaders nodded, their faces filled with determination. Lin knew that to counter the government's offensive, they needed to be smarter and more organized. They decided to intensify their operations, attacking not only law enforcement, but also those who supported Bukele. Meanwhile, at the presidential palace, Bukele was aware of the Mara's movements. He had received intelligence reports indicating an increase in gang activity. He knew that Lin was planning something big, and he couldn't afford to underestimate him. "We need to stay ahead of them," Bukele told his security team. "Lin is dangerous, but not invincible. We must dismantle his network from within." Bukele ordered a series of covert operations to infiltrate the gang and gather vital information. Government agents began moving stealthily, trying to gain the trust of Mara members. At the same time, Bukele intensified his media campaign, making sure the Salvadoran people knew he was doing everything possible to protect them. The tension in the streets of San Salvador was palpable. Confrontations between law enforcement and gang members became more frequent and violent. Nighttime raids and covert operations put the city on constant alert. One night, during one of these raids, government special forces managed to capture one of Viejo Lin's trusted lieutenants. Under intense pressure, the lieutenant revealed crucial details about the gang's plans and Lin's hideouts. With this information in hand, Bukele saw an opportunity to deal a decisive blow. The operation to capture Lin was carried out with military precision. Special forces stormed Lin's hideout in the early hours of the morning, catching the gang off guard. After a brief but intense shootout, Viejo Lin was captured. The news of his capture spread quickly, and the entire city felt a mix of relief and fear of retaliation. From day one, Lin realized that the prison system was designed to break even the strongest men. The guards, following strict orders, made sure Lin knew that here he would not have the power or influence he had on the streets. He was led to his cell with hands and feet chained, his dignity crushed with every step he took. In his cell, Lin found a small, dark, and dirty space. The bed was a hard wooden plank, and the toilet a simple bucket. There was no privacy, and the light barely entered through a small barred window. The loneliness was crushing, but it was only the beginning. The guards made it their personal mission to break Lin. They would wake him up at any hour of the night, banging their batons against the bars, hurling insults and threats. During meals, they made sure to serve him the worst pieces of food, often cold and decomposing. Every interaction with the guards was a test of endurance, and Lin knew that any sign of weakness would be mercilessly exploited. The other prisoners, many of whom were from rival gangs, also saw Lin as a perfect target. Rumors of his downfall had spread quickly, and to them Lin was an opportunity to gain reputation. In the early days, Lin had to defend himself from constant attacks, using all his skills and cunning to survive. The fights were fierce and bloody, and although Lin managed to emerge victorious, Each confrontation left his body more bruised and his hatred deeper. In those moments of loneliness and pain, Lin thought of Bukele. Every blow, every insult, every sleepless night fueled his resentment. He knew his suffering was part of the president's strategy to weaken the Mara, but Lin wouldn't break so easily. His mind worked tirelessly, planning his revenge and how to restore his power. One of the most humiliating moments for Lin came when the guards decided to give him an exemplary lesson. They took him to an isolated section of the prison where he was handcuffed and brutally beaten. The blows were relentless, and the guards made sure each one left a mark. Lin, though sore, didn't emit a single scream, resisting with a fortitude that only intensified his hatred. Weeks passed, and Lin got used to the brutality. His body, though wounded, grew stronger with each passing day. He kept his mind sharp, remembering every detail of his torture, every face of the guards, every insult. He knew that revenge wouldn't be quick or easy, but he was determined to strike back in a way that Bukele would never forget. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, we invite you to give us a like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Let's continue. The days in prison turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Viejo Lin, hardened by the brutality of prison, hadn't lost an ounce of his cunning and determination. Every blow, every insult, and every attempt to break him only served to reinforce his hatred for President Nayib Bukele. Despite the strict security measures and constant surveillance, Lin had managed to establish a communication network with his loyal followers on the outside. His old gangmates, still operating in the shadows of San Salvador, were willing to do whatever it took to restore their leader's power. One day, while in his cell, Lin received a signal from one of the guards, a man he had managed to bribe through his external network. The guard slipped a small note under the door of his cell, informing him that everything was ready to send a message to Bukele. Lin smiled, knowing that this would be the first step in his revenge plan. With a cunning that had made him the feared leader of the Mara, Lin devised a plan to get his message to the president. Using codes and encrypted messages, Lin sent detailed instructions to his men on the outside. The message had to be clear and forceful, a direct warning to Bukele that his capture didn't mean the end. One night, under the cover of darkness, Lin's loyalists infiltrated the city. With the precision of a clock, they executed their plan. Within hours, graffiti appeared at various strategic points in San Salvador, all with the same message. "Bukele, this is not over. I will escape and come for you. Lin." The message spread like wildfire. The citizens of San Salvador woke up to the news and images of the graffiti. The media extensively covered the story, speculating on the implications of the threat. Tension in the city increased, and security around the president was further reinforced. At the presidential palace, Bukele received the news with a mixture of surprise and fury. He couldn't believe that Lin had managed to send him a threat from the maximum security prison. This display of power and resistance from Viejo Lin was a direct affront to his authority and a reminder that the fight against the gangs was far from over. Bukele called an emergency meeting with his security team. "This man remains a threat, even behind bars," said Bukele, his voice full of determination. "We cannot allow his followers to maintain this communication network. I want you to redouble efforts to isolate him completely." Meanwhile, in his cell, Lin learned of the impact of his message. Through his contacts within the prison, he knew that Bukele had increased security measures and that the government was on high alert. Lin allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. He had managed to send his warning and plant the seed of fear in his enemy's heart. But the message was not just a warning, it was a promise. Lin continued to plan his escape meticulously. He knew it would be a long and dangerous process, but he was determined to fulfill his threat. With each passing day, he worked to strengthen his network inside and outside the prison, bribing guards, manipulating other prisoners, and using every resource at his disposal. The guards, though more vigilant than ever, couldn't stop Lin. His network of loyalists expanded, and communication remained intact. Every small success, every message sent and received, gave him more confidence and fueled his determination. Lin knew that his escape was possible, and with each passing day, his plan drew closer to execution. Outside, gang violence increased, partly as a distraction and partly as a show of power. The Maras, following Lin's orders, intensified their activities, keeping the government busy and diverting attention from their leader's true plans. The city plunged into a controlled chaos, all while Lin moved the pieces of his chess game from inside his cell. Finally, the day came when Lin felt ready to execute his escape. Weeks of planning, bribes, and manipulation culminated in a dark and stormy night. With the help of his allies inside and outside the prison, Lin managed to escape, leaving behind a trail of chaos and confusion. When news of Lin's escape reached Bukele, his face darkened. He knew this was just the beginning. Lin was free, and with his freedom came the promise of revenge. The battle between the president and the Mara leader was far from over, and San Salvador was preparing for a new era of conflict, where cunning and determination would decide the fate of a nation. And so we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a thumbs up to keep making more videos like this. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day until next time.